Good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar in which we're going to ponder the question of, does hotel performance improvement depend on performance visibility? My name is Simon Ianson. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at Hoist Group, and I'm extremely grateful you've taken the time today in what must be challenging circumstances for our industry to join us. And I hope that you also participate in this discussion. And you can do this by raising questions through the Q&A function here in your Zoom taskbar. So don't hesitate to raise your hand. I will be the moderator for the session today, and I will try and incorporate your questions as we go along. If I fail to do so, don't worry, we will review all questions at the end. And we certainly want this to be an interactive session. So please do raise your hand, please do ask questions, share experiences, make comments as appropriate. The format for today, as I said, is a panel discussion. I will host it, and I will introduce the panelists in a moment. We will cover a number of different areas of discussion, and I will ask the panelists to share their wisdom and experience from the various parts of our operation within the hotel industry that they come from and that they have worked in for the last number of years. So let me introduce you to the panel. First of all, we have Danny Rees. Danny, do you want to give us a wave? Danny is a customer success manager. She's based in Ireland out of our Kilkenny offices, and it's her job to support our partner hotels with their data and dashboard needs. Likewise, we also have Luigi Cardillo. Luigi is also a customer success manager, and he is based in a similar role in Milan. And finally, we have Francisco Martinez, who works in my key account management team. And Francisco is commercially responsible for driving and developing Hoist Dashboard on a commercial level. Hoist Dashboard is our means of providing you insight into the operation of your hotel, and has been the subject over the last 2 weeks of 11 different training sessions that we have conducted on different subject matters. If you've missed any of those training sessions, don't worry. Like today's webinar, we have recorded them all, and we will record today. And if you've registered for the course, or if you've registered for the webinar, we will make everything available to you at the end of the week. And so you'll be able to go in and review any of the subject matters that are appropriate and relevant to you. So don't hesitate if you've missed anything, okay? And now to you, our audience, our customers. In a normal world, as a hotel professional, you obviously want to ensure your hotel performs better than yesterday, better than your competitors, and so on. And this is particularly relevant right now when we're seeing frequent enforced closures of hotels, the need for short-term responsiveness on bookings, up and down turns, and the generally difficult operating environment we face with the global pandemic still very much in full force. To improve performance, I think it's now, an industry expectation and accepted that you need to know where you stand today and each and every day you run your hotel. But the systems we as an industry use are often highly complex, and it can take hours or even days of number crunching to develop a guest insight and an appreciation of how good their experience is, how relaxed they feel given the COVID protocols you have introduced, how this is affecting your reputation in the market, and many, many more relevant questions in between. And in this day-to-day environment we're living in right now, the opportunity may have passed by the time the complex number crunching has been completed. So let's try and change this. And in this webinar, let's break down the challenge of performance improvement, into smaller pieces and try and address them one by one. My first question, therefore, is really a contextual one. And it's simply, what is hotel performance? And why, indeed, should hoteliers care about it? Francisco, maybe you'd like to kick us off here. Francisco, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you, Simon. So I would say that what we understand normally by hotel performance is a set of wide accepted metrics that just measure the economic results of the hotel, normally occupancy, ADR, and the resulting RevPAR. And you can say you also have similar metrics, for example, for the restaurant or food and beverage space, or for MICE spaces, such as revenue per seat or revenue per seat hour or revenue per square meter, etc. However, I think the problem becomes a lot more complex when you look at other data metrics that underline the performance and explain the results of those, let's say, endpoint metrics. For example, data like reputation, where you measure how well your guests are responding to your service and what kind of sentiment you're eliciting on them out of the experience they bear in your hotel. Or even looking at on the books data to understand how your future performance is parameterized and how your response to the market is working on a real-time basis. Or even more complex, when you look at your services and try to understand how they are performing, for example, TV or internet, even metrics from your internal systems, such as a housekeeping or maintenance system that are actually collecting how your internal operations are delivering. And many of those metrics then are very useful to understand what is the underlying driver for a good or bad final RevPAR figure or revenue per seat figure, for example.
Okay. So it's all about understanding your environment. Okay, good. Danny, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I guess as Francisco mentioned, there's key metrics within the hospitality industry, things like your average daily rate, your occupancy, your RevPAR. They're just to mention just a couple of them. These are all your key performance indicators or your KPIs. We'll probably mention these a lot throughout these conversations. It's important that these are monitored, on a daily basis for yesterday's business or for the last 7 days, the coming 7 days. You want to keep an eye on these metrics to make sure, firstly, your cost control. So, for example, is my occupancy and my cost control for staffing costs, is it relative? It's a very fine line, for example, with your staffing costs. We want to keep it as tight as possible in the business, but we obviously have to keep the business functioning correctly. We can't afford to have complaints or anything like this going up online. So it's a good idea to kind of have an understanding of these and what they mean. As well as that, not even just keeping it on a short-term basis, but looking at a longer-term picture as well. What's happening for the next 30 or 90 days, and how are my operating costs against my revenue and my ADR, and a lot of these things. So it's just important to kind of understand them from my point of view.
Okay, great. Luigi, would you like to come in on this as well?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I would say that there are a lot of metrics related to the financial part that are quite easy to understand when they are bringing value. But there are some other metrics which are a bit different, like the behavior of our guests when they are in the hotel, like the platform that they use when they are in the hotel, and how the usage of those things can bring the value of our hotel and services. For example, how easy is the communication between the hotel and the guests? Normally, we undervalue how we communicate with the guests. We just put some paper in the room and that's it. Now, today, with the COVID situation, is this kind of way of thinking has to be changed. So we have to use different methods. We have to use signage ways, digital signage solutions. And like this, we also have the possibility to have a kind of feedback of how all these instruments we have, they improve the performance of our hotel, they improve the mood of the guest, they improve the consumption, for example, of the minibar or of the restaurants. Everything we do today can be monitored. So there are a lot of things that are not exactly financially related in the beginning, but they bring value as soon as we understand the numbers behind it.
So you're talking about the all-round experience, really. This is soft matters as much as hard financial matters. And if I understand you correctly, you're saying that as a hotelier, we should consider all inputs here. That seems
exactly.
logical to me. Okay, great. So that's some great examples, perhaps, of the metrics. I think really what I'd like to sort of dig into now is why monitoring of these metrics are important or difficult or relevant. And I'd like the panel to give us some examples they have or some scenarios and situations that kind of illustrate why performance management and performance monitoring are so intrinsically linked. So let's throw some light on this. Danny, have you got an example you can share with us today?
Yeah, if we take the example of a hotel owner, okay? So a hotel owner, they're responsible for the high level aspects of the business. They're the decision makers. They're the ones that want to make sure, obviously, the hotel stays open. They're responsible for the business and all of its employees. So they generally, a hotel owner, they don't have time for the micro details. They're looking at the bigger picture, the macro picture. So this is where their chosen management team and the tools that they surround themselves with comes really into play. They need to be able to rely on their team to provide them their KPIs, their statistical information from all of the relevant departments and the data kind of behind all those departments, so they can make decisions and make their decision-making process easier. As we know with the hotel industry, it's fast paced, it's go, 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 go. So we need to be able to have this information at your fingertips and ready to make these decisions quick, easy, and go really from there.
Okay, so metrics lead to decision making, and I guess this is decision making on the basis of a clear insight into behavioral patterns, consumption, and everything else. Okay, great. Luigi, your background is more on the network side. Danny has had a lot of her career in hotel operations and on the property management side.
Yeah.
From a networking angle, what would you add to these examples here?
Well, for me, it's easy to bring an example of the IT manager of the hotel.
Okay.
They are really focused on a lot of activities. Every day they have to take care of many data that are coming, and what the thing that I lack is the time to do everything. So it's important for them to have a tool, a platform, which will allow them to keep monitoring all the status of the equipment in the network. Everything that is network related has to be monitored so that they can be proactive in case of a failure, and they can avoid issues for the guests. Like this, it's easy to see what is the result, because the happiness of the guest will improve immediately. They will be satisfied. They will leave good, how to say, they will leave good
reviews, would you say?
Reviews, exactly, sorry. And they will come back. So the point is for the guests to be happy and to come back in every hotel. So we need to make them as happy as possible. And to do that, we need to be sure that everything is perfect when they are here. So for the technical stuff related, we need to make sure that everything is working well every day. And we don't have the time to look at everything every day. So what we need is a platform that will advise us if something is not working. And we need an alert, we need an email, something automated that will that will get our attention, and we can be easily responsive of everything that happens.
Okay. So I guess there's sort of two sides to this. The first side is, yeah, be on top of your guest experience and ensure that your guests, especially with a narrowed funnel of guests coming into properties because of the reduction in travel, you will drive loyalty from being on top of things. But I guess that leads to another question. Look, we're in a time of heavily reduced occupancy and forced closures in some parts of the world. You know, are we talking new systems here? Is this reinvestment that hotels will have to make in these tough times? And is that really a viable proposition at this particular juncture? Francisco, do you have any thoughts to share on this?
Well, yes, it's very important when you think about new systems to take into account that we're living in right now in a situation where resources are constrained. And it's very important when you look at that, obviously, that you nevertheless take the good decisions, I think. So it's very important that if you're going to invest, at least you look at the ROI of that investment and make sure that whatever you buy will be flexible, and not only will it have a contained cost, but as well, it will be able to evolve with you over the time. Particularly when you're going to take a decision now, but it may live with you for a long amount of time, let's put it that way.
But these monitoring platforms that you're talking about, you know, hotels are not necessarily in a position right now, hopefully this will change in due course, but they're not really necessarily in a position right now to be able to invest in new systems that feed the monitoring platform. So what are the hints and tips and tricks for introducing a platform on top of what's already infrastructure and services and applications provided in the hotel?
Okay. Well, I'd say the simple ideas that need to underline any platform, I'd say are basically three. That the data and the insights should be easy to access. That means it has to be at the tip of your fingers. It has to travel with your own device. It has to be portable in your computer, in your mobile, pop up with a simple click. Easy to access that information. Second one would be easy to understand. A system of color coding, a system of simple graphics that lets you very easily get the insight of what is behind all that data. Now, the third part that I think is also fairly important is that data in itself has limited value if it's not conducive to an action. And for that purpose, data needs to trigger a corrective action or a reaction that basically implements any performance improvement in the hotel. And for that reason, it's also very important, for example, that a system has an embedded set of alerts that will warn you when things reach a certain threshold where you consider that at that point you need to have a reaction, maybe just analyze or maybe just take the decision to act on a cost or modify a certain strategy or price differently, etc. And all these elements are very important on a system because monitoring in itself is only part of it. It needs to guide you through understanding the data and then acting on it the right manner.
Okay. So the message is talk to your partners of the various systems here as a hotel and find out what data can be provided and I guess how it can be provided and how it can be fused together to make a clear picture. Danny, maybe if we come to you next, let's take the point about return on investment. Surely this is the most critical aspect here.
Yeah, like Francisco does make a very valid point about the return on investment. It's critical, you're right. There's various different options available on the market. You know, there's a lot of them that will probably charge you an arm and a leg for some integration, you know, or a customization or something like that within your software, no matter what the software might be. So you could have that element of it, these companies that charge a high amount, or you could have something that could be as low as 100 or 200 euro, and it could be quite cost effective. But you might not really kind of get the value on your return if you have something like that system. So it's important that you kind of do a full evaluation on, firstly, what is the return on investment or the potential return on investment? And there's a lot of kind of easy calculations you can do on that. And I suppose looking at the amount of work involved in doing the integration and what's the return on it from that point of view as well. And yeah, shopping around to make sure that you're looking at the best partner available for it, because ultimately, yes, you're investing. You want to make sure it's something that's going to give you a long-term result and it's going to be beneficial to you.
Okay. So I think results here are important, and I think this should be taken into the context of what we're discussing here today. Everything that we do as an industry, we should be driven by the results of it. And maybe it's fair to say that performance can only be, improved statistically and emphatically and justify that investment. And it might not be money, it might be an investment in time or an investment in processes, on hotels that actively monitor and take action. but I'm sure there are, I'm sure there's complications, there's hurdles in this process. Would anyone from the panel like to comment on what any of these hurdles might be?
Well, I can say something about that. There are a lot of complications related to the communication between the departments of the hotel. The return of investment can be easily seen also when we save time on daily operations. So another important thing for the hotel is to optimize the resources they have, especially now, because they have maybe low occupancy and they have even less resources than before. So they need to be sure everything is working even better than before, but with less resources. So a tool that will allow them to communicate in a fast way, to manage the resources in a really fast way, and to have a report of all the daily operations that are made and how long they took. It will help them greatly and improve the return of investment in a quite really short time. I'm sure of it. We have already some examples that they use this kind of platform and after 6 months they were so happy about it. They were advertising it with other competitors as well.
Okay, so clearly not only acceptance, but sharing successes is great, and I think we should do more as an industry, frankly, on that. What should people making investments in time, money, or process be looking at when it comes to leveraging the software, especially when we're leveraging here between, different parties, different companies providing different aspects of the guest journey and the guest service delivery in that hotel? What are the hints and tricks? What are the tips? Let's think API here, I guess. Let's think alerting, I think we've touched on already. Yeah, let's look at simplicity of performance management and everything that goes with it. Who'd like to come in on that?
Well, Simon, Francisco, I'd say that something very important about systems is that normally monitoring performance is complex because in a hotel, it tends to be spread about multiple systems. And these systems tend to be complicated, and there are only specific people in the hotel that know how to manage and pull data from them. This tends to be quite a complication in terms of putting in place a performance monitoring system, because when a hotel owner or a marketeer need to get some information, often they have to rely on a third person that has to extract a report and send it to them, often with several days delay. And that makes it very difficult then to even further correlate the different reports and create clear insights. So for example, let me put an example. If I say, is my occupancy, which is now probably low, what is, of course, aside of the current market conditions, affecting that occupancy? Am I low because of my reputation scores? Or is it because my competitor in front of the road has dropped prices? Or, is there any other reason to it? These questions seem very easy to formulate and seem simple in the way we state them, but they are actually quite difficult to come to an answer to them unless you have all those systems sharing information and talking together. And I think that tends to be the biggest challenge one of the biggest challenges in the industry, because they tend to lead to often complex integration efforts that are expensive and difficult to evolve over time. I have the example I remember of a Central European chain, a mid-sized chain that undertook a fairly broad exercise to actually aggregate and provide full visibility over the inventory evolution over time to all their hotels in real time and with a fairly good detail. Now, this was a project that took 2 or 3 years to implement at a fairly remarkable cost. And when it came live, well, the GMs were delighted when they saw it. They said, great, this is really what I wanted. It's really what I need. Now, the only detail is I need this granularity in this data. I need to see actually by type of room, and I need to see these other things. And then when they came there, they just realized, well, the data structure that they had put in place for that was not ready for those extensions. So improving the product was, again, another fairly extensive exercise. The problem here was that it wasn't designed to evolve or to be flexible. And over time, this made it very complex. And I think there's a lot of histories in hospitality of projects like that, where what we need really is a much lighter, more flexible approach to managing data that allows for, let's say, constant evolution.
Okay. And I guess we're talking about data from multiple sources. Hotels, I guess, are pretty used to exporting data. I'm sure many of the hoteliers on this call are receiving CompSet information from the Benchmark Alliance or from STR and other companies. Luigi, maybe if I can come to you, how much more complicated is it in a sort of API type environment, and what should hotels, or actually could be anyone on the panel, doesn't have to necessarily be Luigi, what's the complexity here over and above the sort of actions that a hotelier might be used to already? Is it much more?
Well, the complexity to mix multiple platform and multiple source of data is very high. The point is, to make it easy, you need to have a kind of data lake where you can aggregate all those data together, no matter where the source are or in which format they are. You need to have a data lake, and then you need to have a business intelligence tool that will help you to analyze all that data and to get it in a kind of readable way. So when you have this kind of platform, it will be quite easy to integrate all the third-party player that you have, and which through the API, of course, it will be easy to integrate them. And then it will be even easier to get reports or complex analysis from all the data that you have, if you have all them in a single place.
Okay. So what you're also implying here, I guess, is about automating the data flow and getting that information in real time. And that in itself has an implication for architecture and the design of systems. So I think the message here to the audience really, and we'd love your feedback on this, the message here to the audience is have a think about what you want to measure, look around into the market, understand what perhaps your CompSet are measuring, and really challenge us as an industry, not just Voice Group, but I mean in the broader discussion here, to be able to present that information that you need in a manner that is of appeal to your hotel at a timeliness that that is relevant to you. We talked earlier, or you talked earlier on the panel about alerting. Danny, I guess to have alerts as a reality, the data has got to stack up properly, because the last thing you want to do in a hotel is be running around with false alarms the whole time. Do you have any examples to add of relevant alerting examples, or how this has saved the day in a hotel operation?
Yeah, there's loads of examples you could use. A couple of them have been kind of mentioned throughout the call, but I suppose if we kind of link it all together, if you take, for example, a hotel, and a hotel's reputation, so important to a hotel. And one of the things is, let's say I'm a guest, I go online and I post a review about the Wi-Fi. Okay, it was shocking in my room, I didn't like it, and all of this other lovely words that go on inside online. And if I was a network manager, and if I had a tool that was able to alert me to say access point B that supplies to room 200 is down, at least straight away I would get an alert to say, okay, that's not working. I can go and fix the problem, possibly before the guest is even aware it happened. So that's one example of kind of how a a system that's alerting you constantly and telling you something's wrong can let you know and possibly stop a situation from escalating. But if you look at it from the other side, let's say I didn't have that network response. I didn't have somebody that went in to say, oh, access point B is down. The review came in online and I'm the marketing manager. I obviously want to monitor these reviews, see when they come in and respond to them and do a little bit of, damage control, stop the fire from spreading, because reputation is just so important to a hotel. So I have a platform or something like that that's able to say to me, hey, you just got a new review. It's not 100% positive. It might be a little bit neutral. What can we do about this? Let's reply to the guest. Let's show our future guests as guests that we are responding to these reviews. We're proactive about it. We've isolated the issue and responded to it. So, there's two examples of using a system and how it can be used to kind of escalate things and control it.
So at the end of the day, I guess this is all about guest experience. And guest experience leads to improved financial performance, improved loyalty, improved market share, especially in this current operating environment. So I think, we're approaching the time now where we should start to get the participants and the audience actively involved in the debate. And we will open the floor to their questions. Before I close off, would anyone like to share any final anecdotes or any closing points on the discussion today? Any hints and tips? And I'll throw that open to all the panelists. If there's anyone with a burning need to say something, please do so now. Okay, good. So let me conclude. The question we posed at the beginning was all about performance improvement requiring performance and visibility. And we would certainly as a company argue that it's essential, and it's essential the more critical the situation is. But actually, you could also argue that performance visibility is just as important in the good times too. Performance visibility, however, is something that can quickly overwhelm you as a head of department in a hotel. And the danger with data is that there is just too much of it in an uncontrolled way. And this is something equally, as well as not enough data, is just as bad. And really, as again, as an industry and as working with hotels, it's our job to help you, the hoteliers, define your KPIs and what your requirements are and what data it is that you want to see and how that data is presented. But it's also up to you to define your roadmap and your vision. And of course, we can share, best practice on this to the extent it can be shared. Some things will obviously be completely confidential and not shareable. But yeah, there is an implication. But the good news is, by the sound of things, and thanks to the panelists for going through a number of examples there, it sounds like there are a lot of solutions out there. And on that positive note, I would like to stop the central part of the discussion and like to go to any questions if we have any. It doesn't look like we have any questions at the moment. So clearly we've answered all of your points and everything you wanted to know about hotel data and visibility and performance improvement. Somehow I doubt that. So please don't be shy. Come and hit us with a question. If you think of a question later, by all means, drop us a note at marketing@hoistgroup.com and we will address that question after the webinar. Okay. All right. So on that note, I will draw today's proceedings to a close. Again, a heartfelt thank you to all of you participating today. Particular thanks to Danny, to Luigi and Francisco for agreeing to be panelists on this webinar. As I said right at the top, we will make the webinar and the 11 separate training sessions we have put together available to you. You will get an email as long as you've registered for these sessions at the end of the week. And please, by all means, use this to, to put insight into your data and dashboard experience, to look at new ways of perhaps addressing and quantifying and improving guest performance and hotel performance. And again, if you've got any questions for us, please don't hesitate to get in touch, or any feedback, on how the course has been and how the webinar was at marketing@hoistgroup.com. On which note, I bid you all a good day. Thank you very much for your time. Take care and speak to you soon. Bye now.